What's the biggest bullet you've ever dodged? I had 2 job offers in different states at the same time. The one I didn't take was offering more money, but I just didn't gel with the guy who would be my boss, and really liked the guy who would be my boss at the lower offer. The better offer was in a state I had always wanted to live in, for a company I admired, but something felt off, so I went with the lower offer. I ended up meeting my wife in the city of the lower offer. Meanwhile, the company that had given me the higher offer abruptly closed and laid off their entire staff with no severance, so if I had taken that I would have been stuck on the other side of the country with no job and no money. Not the biggest bullet I've ever dodged, but I had to walk away from the interview process from one of my dream companies because I had been out of work for a year and I had another offer from a smaller, less prestigious company and cold told out with no income any longer. I tried asking the dream company if we could speed up the process due to the competing offer, but they could not. The dream company was in entertainment and laid off a ton of people when the pandemic hit. The job I took was doing the same role, but in real estate, which boomed during the pandemic. Also, my ex ended up getting a job at the dream company. Kind of nice to not have to work next to her. Similar story to offers, one for a little more money, the other had way better retirement plan. The interview for the good benefits company just didn't feel right, like the interviewer was trying to convince me not to take it. I took the other offer, and the good benefits company merged with another company, moved half their workforce to a one company town in BFE, Ohio, and laid off the rest. My interviewer at that company ended up becoming my coworker at the other company, and his manager ended up being his and my manager at the other company. A literal one. A friend was showing off some handguns he bought with his first paycheck. Checked the chamber to make sure nothing was there, sighted at me, and pulled the trigger. Of course, the gun was loaded. Bullet passed over my right shoulder and buried itself in a chair. We aren't friends anymore for some odd reason. Edit. Well, this blew up more than expected. Thank you for all the well wishes. I'm fine other than minor deafness in my right ear. Edit. To it was a 9mm semi-auto made in Serbia. Other than that, I have no idea. He probably had the magazine loaded, and by checking the chamber he racked the slide and chambered the round. For anyone reading this, do not operate the action of any firearm unless the magazine is removed and the safety is in the on position. Edit. One of the big rules of gun safety is, don't point guns at people unless you intend to use them. Gun safety is something everyone should learn before buying them. Glad you're okay, man. Once at a bar, a woman was surprisingly into me as we danced. If I had had more confidence back then, I definitely could taken her home. In the end, one of my karaoke buddies ended up with her instead and got caught by her husband that night. I knew a guy that got stabbed by the husband after he went home with a woman. Apparently she liked seeing the husband go crazy on the dudes she brought home. That's something I don't understand. If you're the husband and your wife cheats on you, don't flip out on the guy who's with your wife. Flip out on the one who cheated the wife. The guy likely feels just as cheated on as you do. For some reason, most guys want to fight the other guy, like they are fighting over the woman who neither of them want anymore anyway, and it makes no sense. That time I didn't go along for the ride when a friend of mine was running weed years ago, back when it was more illegal. I was bored and unemployed at the time, and passed on this trip because I had to go to a job interview to be a zombie for Halloween festivities at an amusement park. I got the job, my friend got arrested, and did 30 days in jail. That sounds like an awesome job. That sounds like it would have been a fun job. I broke my lease and moved out of a terrible apartment complex I was living in to move back home because I was broke. 2 weeks later the whole complex burned to the ground from a meth lab in another unit. I have a similar one. I broke a lease to move home due to being broke. During the course of that lease there were multiple murders and break-ins all throughout the complex. My apartment was on the first floor, so easy break-in. Edit for those concerned. It wasn't like a serial killer or anything, just an explosion of gang violence. My apartment was in the ghetto outside of Dallas. I have a similar one too. Moved out because I was broke. But before that there was a really nasty smell outside. Couldn't think what it could be, but didn't think much of it. It was August, so we just assumed a nearby dumpster baking in the heat. Anyway, a month after I moved out they found a dead body directly behind the house. Person got hit by the train. That kept me up at all hours of the night. I hated that place, and to top it off we found out from our former neighbor there was black mold throughout the unit and had to renovate it per order of the city. High school GF wanted to talk about baby names. I was headed to college. No thoughts of being a parent. My mom even found a note in my pocket listing her favorites if we had a boy. Anyway, we broke up after 2 years. The next guy she dated was a dad within 9.5 MOs. She was gonna baby trap you, yikes. Gee, she really must have been desperate for a baby. I got on an intercity bus and almost sat in the middle, but moved and sat at the back. The bus later collided with a truck and got opened up like a tin can. If I had sat where I originally intended I would have been killed. I was late to my bus, and instead of running to catch it, I decided to miss it, and it was later hit by a speeding truck. Caught the one behind it and later saw the aftermath. 2 people died. It does raise the question, if you did run down the bus would the 30 seconds of it stopping to pick you up have avoided the crash? In 1996, my parents were deciding between 2 houses to move into. They picked the new construction that resulted in being placed on shoddy soil and years of lawsuits when we ultimately moved in 2001. Anyway, the other house they could have picked presumably on better soil would have placed my older sister at Columbine High School as a freshman for the 19,981,999 school year. Reading this at first like this doesn't seem like a dodged blow. This escalated in a way that I would never expect. I knew a guy that got stabbed by the husband after he went home with a woman. Apparently she liked seeing the husband go crazy on the dudes she brought home. I swear there was a movie or show with something like this. The guy pays, tells this dude to sleep with his wife, and then beats the shit out of him afterwards. Edit, it was the drone pilot from Jack Ryan. Thanks Untiv. Such a weird scene. R.I.P. Ron Goldman. 2005, my friend and I evacuated New Orleans 2 days before Hurricane Katrina and drove to Mississippi with the little money we had. We were trying to decide on where to stay for the night, and it was between a mid-range hotel or the really cheap motel. Decided to spend a little more for the hotel. During the night the eye of the storm came through Mississippi and flattened the roof of the motel we decided against. My mom wasn't going to leave for Katrina. I told her I was going to take me and my little sister and hitchhike if she didn't pack the car and leave within the hour. My dad didn't leave, and he ended up on the roof with our neighbor because our house got flooded. No way all of us would have survived. Katrina decimated my town. Everything 2 miles inland or less was destroyed. Some years, I'm fine. Other years, I get super duper sad on the Katrina anniversary. We evacuated to my parents' house in Atlanta and spent the next 4 months waiting for our house to get fixed. We thought we'd flooded Walmsley Avenue, but we were the only house I knew for blocks and blocks and blocks that didn't. We were just a little bit higher than everyone else. The plumbing, electrical, gas, and ductwork all had to be replaced, but the water didn't come inside, it came to the door jamb, and the old side door fork flooded too. Here are some photos I took from back then. I will never see anything like that again in my life. Singer.com Gallery Camper. I almost fell for a pyramid scheme in high school. My friend brought me to one of their meetings ACN, and I was so on board, but my parents talked me down. I was upset at them until I learned more about MLMs and quickly changed my mind. Sometimes I imagine where I'd be now if I went through with it. It wouldn't be pretty, that's for sure. Wow, I remember ACN. What a sham. The exact same thing happened to me. Different pyramid scheme, but same story. I was young, without a job or any job education, had previously been fired from my apprenticeship, so I was pretty desperate. A friend of mine was approached by someone he knew about this new company that needed motivated young people and didn't require any particular training, so we decided to check it out. Everybody was super nice and sounded like they knew what they were talking about. It wasn't a traditional pyramid scheme either, or at least it didn't sound like one, because at no point did they tell us to recruit others. Also, it was none of that network marketing bullshit, where there's a huge load of buzzwords with no actual talk about what you're going to be doing. Instead, it was about insurance, which to a young and inexperienced person sounded respectable enough. So we were basically tasked to start talking up this insurance stuff to people, and they told us a good place to start would be our parents. The experience of me trying to tell my parents about how great this shit was and that they should get it basically just to help me out, only to be shut down by them and be told that I was falling for a pyramid scheme has to be one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. I was pissed at first, and after I realized what I had almost gotten into, I was terribly ashamed. My parents made me feel incredibly stupid, and it was the best thing they could ever have done for me. I have recently been watching the sister of a close friend of mine get into a pyramid scheme, and I kept wondering how you could be so stupid until I remembered that I almost went down the same road. And X200B. Edit. Many people think this was Pramerica. It was not. I'm from Germany. It was a German company. But from what I can gather, it functions basically the exact same way. Not me. A Dutch mate of mine living in Tasmania had to visit his sick mum in Amsterdam. Booking his flight online, he said to his wife, "You know, I'm sick of flying Malaysian Airlines. The food is shit. The hostesses are miserable. It'll cost more, but I'm booking with Singapore." So, instead of dying on MH17, he was on a plane 40 kilometers ahead of it. Butterfly effect. If someone at Malaysia had made a better menu, he could have died. My uncle booked one flight earlier than MH17 with Malaysian Airlines, because then he could be at work earlier. Shit's crazy. Not me, but my dad. He traveled to London for work back from 2001, 2007. He was booked for the day off on July 7, 2005, as that is my birthday, and the train he normally got to work was one of the ones that was bombed by terrorists. Edit. I wasn't born in 2005, just to clarify. It was just the date I had a birthday on that my dad wanted to spend with me. I was born July 7, 1997. I think that was the one where people would normally have taken the Piccadilly line changed because of a delay, so a lot of people died due to a fault on the Piccadilly line. The one in front of mine. I have always had a problem with tardiness. I'm just always running late. I got on my train at Manor House and was evacuated and walking in tunnels with tube staff. I remember being really confused because I was exiting on foot in Euston when I should have been at King's Cross, but people were everywhere. It was pandemonium, so I just tried to get on a bus. My commute used to go straight through central London and out to Hammersmith. On the bus outside Hammersmith, a guy got on with what I realize now was metal detector and was sweeping the seats. When I got to work at a training depot for nurses, all the sisters were in their nursing garb, which wasn't common, and it took a long time for me to discover how narrowly I missed being caught in the bomb. There was only one moment I remember feeling frightened, and that was the trip home again in the evening. That bus ride took forever.